Editing can feel like a time drain, especially if you're new to DaVinci Resolve. So today I'm going to show you the exact process I use to edit efficiently every single week. I've had over 200,000 views in the last 8 months on videos just like this. So if you're ready to get better and more confident in Resolve, let's jump in. Step number one for me is the project setup. And if you don't have a template project set up for your DaVinci Resolve projects, then you're going to miss out. So let me go through what I do to set up a template project. That way you don't have to start from scratch every single time. So over here in DaVinci Resolve, you'll notice in the media pool, I have folders that are already in here. So I actually export a kind of project starter template that I import in every single video so I don't have to start from scratch. So let me show you real fast how to save a project starter file. And so once you have opened up a project in DaVinci Resolve and maybe you've gone through and you've added folders over here or bins and you've imported certain things, if you want to save all that out, you can come up to File, and then go down to Export Project. And then once you export that project, it'll have all these master and timeline bins and all these things already in that project file, as well as the files themselves. Now you might have to relink depending on where those files are on your hard drive, but at least you have a good starting point. So the second step is to organize all your assets within DaVinci Resolve. Another thing I use are power bins, which are bins that basically on your database, if you know anything about DaVinci Resolve, when you open it up, things are in a database. All right, so let me go here and just close this project real fast. It's gonna show you that we are on these databases. So I have a local database on my hard drive. These are the things that, this is where all my projects are. And this is kind of the test project area. This is where I do tutorial things and just test out different stuff. And I have a project starter here. And that's the file that I already had open. I'll just reopen it again. But anything on that in that database, a power bin is going to have available in every project that you put in there. So I use that for assets like backgrounds. I have some different backgrounds in here, some highlight elements, overlays, and sound effects. So that way, those are always in my projects. When I start a new project, they're there and ready to go. And then all you have to do, if you don't see power bins, maybe you see smart bins, you come up to this little 3 dot here, and you can come down and either show smart bins and or check power bins. The difference between smart bins and power bins: smart bins are kind of automatic organizers. So when let's say you have just this master bin up here and you drag all your files, video, audio, screen capture, all the files, you just drag into the master bin. Smart bins will actually automatically organize those based off the metadata and some of the other things that it tries to figure out on itself. So it does a pretty good job, but I find that I like to just organize my own files. So I don't really use smart bins, but you can use that. Power bins, again, are not smart bins. They're just bins that you create that are in every single project on your database. So again, I put all my assets and things that I want to use on any given project in there, and those load every single time. The other thing, let me explain real fast just how I have my project organized. I have a timelines folder with primary and secondary timelines. So secondary timelines are timelines that I create for motion graphics and just different elements that I might want to add that aren't typically, the main structure of the video. Primary timelines are the main structure of the video. And so I always have a final cut, which is the final edit basically. And that's where like all the fine tuning and a lot of the B-roll and motion graphics and sound effects and music and all that's going to be added there. I have an A-roll, which is this shot right here of me, just talking to the camera. That's where the A-roll will go. And I'll talk about that a little bit later down the road. And then a screen capture timeline for my screen. If I'm capturing the screen, it goes in there. And then text to copy is just a timeline where I have some preset text effects or animations that I want to just be able to copy to a different timeline. I can just copy them from that timeline and drop them in the Final Cut timeline if I want to use those. Now I also have a lot of presets or like effects and things that I've purchased from places like Motion VFX and things like that I will use as well. And those are always down here in the effects tab. All right, now that your workspace is all set up, let's go ahead and jump into actually building out your edit. So step 3 for me is all about cleaning up the audio and getting it ready to go. So I'm gonna just walk through that process and show you what I do. So in the A-roll timeline, I will lay down my A-roll video. So I'll come over here. Here's the video clip from my camera, and I'll go ahead and lay that down on the timeline. And you can see it's just talking head video. This is from my previous video that I did. And so we're going to go through that process. And the first thing I'm going to do is normalize. So normalizing is basically taking this audio file, which is right now pretty small. It's low. It's kind of probably negative 40 dB. And I'm going to raise it. So right click the file, go up to normalize audio levels, and then you can set it to whatever you want. And I go ahead and have it peak to 0 because I'm going to use some compression on it anyway. So we normalize it, and you can see the waveform expanded quite a bit. So that brings this peak, which is right here. Some noise or something I said was a little bit louder, and it takes it to 0. So not everything's at 0, just that highest peak on the audio file. All right, then the next thing I will do, and the reason I put this, let me real fast talk about this. The reason I put the A-roll and the screen capture kind of in separate timelines and then edit in the Final Cut is because I want to be able to make global adjustments to the files, the color, and all that just on the fly. And if I want to go back to it, I want to make those edits. So if I chop it up here, then I'm gonna have to go one by one if I'm on the clip level. So I want to be able to do this on the clip level. So the first thing I'm going to do is select the file again, go to audio, and I'm going to add AI voice isolation. So this is DaVinci Resolve's kind of like noise removal plugin. It is only in studio version. If you don't have this, it's not necessary. You don't need it. But if you do have the studio version, the paid version, then I go ahead and do it. And I put it at like 80%. And that just drops out any of the like echo in this room or any kind of noises that don't need to be, that aren't my voice, that don't need to be there. It just does that for me. And then as I have this selected, I'm going to go over here to the Fairlight window down here and click it. And this just brings up a little bit more controls for the audio. And I'm no longer going to edit on the clip level. I'm going to edit on the track level. So the A1 track, audio track, this is going to affect anything on the A1 audio track for the duration of the timeline. So I don't really have a whole lot that I do. I just simply change the order so that the effect or the EQ comes before the dynamics. And then the dynamics, I'm going to add some compression. So I actually have presets. Again, you want to save presets for everything. It just makes things faster. So I have this saved preset for my voice. I'm going to click it, and you can kind of look at the settings I have here to get something similar. Let me explain what each of these are doing. One, we have the limiter, which is this blue line. It does not allow the audio to go higher than that ever. So it'll just cut off the audio, which won't sound good, but it'll keep it from, popping the speakers and things like that because it's removing that ability to get to exactly 0 on the meter. And then the other thing I do is I have compression here. So that's taking some of this top end and pushing it down a little bit. And the reason I do that is because if I, talk really loud or have loud pops or whatever, it's going to diminish those a little bit to kind of match my normal talking tone and voice. And then a little bit of a gate on the end to drop off some of these lower, dB ranges that really are just probably hums and other noises that I don't need a part of my voice. But along with the compression, I'm actually boosting the gain on the output a little bit. So because I took off some of the top volume, the gain of it, and I brought it down, I'm going to bring some of that back. So it's a pretty level structure of my voice and the way I talk. So that nothing's really, really soft and nothing's really, really loud. It kind of just neutralizes it all. So that's the settings I have for the dynamics. And then on EQ, again, I have a preset set. And so you got to make sure you do these presets. I have a couple different presets for boom mics, for the DJI Lav that I use sometimes. And then also I'm using the SM7B mic right here. So that's this preset. And I'll get on here, and this is kind of like a starting point. It just depends on how my voice is, how I talk, that kind of thing. What I do with this mic, so this mic is a lot more bass and mid heavy. It doesn't have a ton of clarity. It's a great vocal mic for singing and things like that. For talking, I like to add a little brightness. Typically, this is a starting point, but I actually probably broaden this up here and bring this up around the 800,000 range. And so this brings a lot of brightness. Now, you have to make sure that you don't have anything really loud or clicky or high frequency noises in the room, because this will boost that quite a bit as well. But I find that this adds just a little bit to my voice that brings some clarity and separation. and then dropping out the 500K range down to like the 200K range a little bit, brings out some of the muddiness. It removes some of the muddiness from my voice, and then add a little bit of the 100 to 150K range will bring some of that boost, that bass back up into it. But then save the preset. You can save presets by hitting the plus here, and I can either update or create a new one based off of, you know, what I have in the settings. And so same with dynamics over here, you can hit plus right here to do the same thing. So that's how you save presets in Fairlight. All right, with crisp audio now, the next thing I'm gonna go to is color grading. So the thing with color grading, it instantly will bring you some sort of professionalism, the way it looks, and you want to be able to do that quickly. So let me show you what I do now. And again, I do this on the clip level here in the A roll. So I can always go back and make one adjustment, and it's going to affect the entire A roll, no matter what I cut up in the Final Cut timeline. So with that selected, I'm going to come over to the color tab, click on the color tab, and again, using presets, this is so key for you to have a smooth editing process and workflow. You got to use presets. You got to save some of these things you do so you're not remaking everything every single time. So I have in the gallery section over here, if you click this and open it up, it'll be empty. You can right click and import. And so when I import the file that I have saved to my hard drive, it shows up here. It's called Oppenheimer Look. This is actually a custom LUT that I created based off of one of the clips from the film Oppenheimer. I love the way that was color graded. And so I actually spent probably about 5 or 6 hours fine tuning that into a LUT that I have created for myself. But this is not only just the LUT, this is also the presets of all the different things I do in Resolve. So once you have that loaded, all you have to do is drag that onto your first node, and it's going to bring all the nodes in. So when I let go, you're going to see all the nodes were added. Let me close the gallery here. So here's all the nodes added in my color system, and I'm going to walk you through what I do in each of these so that you can understand what makes the image look the way it looks. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is notice it says a missing LUT. And that's my Oppenheimer, cloudy LUT that I created. So that's right here on this. Anytime you see this little checker pattern icon, that is a LUT. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select that. I'm going to go up to LUTs and then go down and find the custom, which is where I have laid that. I'm going to grab my LUT and I'm going to drag it on there. So now it's good to go. It's there. If I come over here and you can kind of see a shot of me, it's pretty dark. My preset's pretty dark. It's way underexposed. So I'm going to make adjustments to that with the second node. So, I'll go through, once I make the adjustments, I'll walk through all the nodes together. So on the second one, I have a color space transform. And so I'm basically taking this from, let me go ahead and turn off all of these different nodes and we'll just look at what this is doing. So it's taking it from the log profile, the Canon log 3 that my R5 is shooting on right now, and it's all flat, and it's taking that and transforming that color space from the Canon Cinema Gamut and Canon log 3 to the user timeline, which is Rec 709. So it's converting that to a Rec 709 color space. With that, there's some adjustments you can make here to the adaptation, which will bring exposure levels up or down. And so I'm going to just boost this by going to the left, and you're going to see this, the screen will just go up and get a little bit brighter, right? By default, it's actually really high at 9. So it's pretty bright, which is right about where I need to be. If you're looking at the waveforms down here, I might need to go a little bit brighter than that. So I'm just going to boost it over just a tad to maybe like 5.5 or so. And that brings that exposure up. So that's what this node is doing. It's transforming the color space. Before I do that, I actually have a couple adjustments here. And that's just because I want it to look a certain way before the color adjustments happen. One thing I'm doing is I'm changing the color temperature and the tint. So I'm dropping the color temperature down to more blue and then the tint a little bit to the green. And so I can do that in my camera, but I like to shoot the log profile with whatever my light is, but then I'm going to add a little bit of blue because I know what my color grade, my LUT is going to do. So I actually reduce that a little bit before I use color space transform. So that's what that is. I also, in the hue versus hue, I kind of shift the yellows or skin tones just a little bit. And then in the third node is the LUT, like I talked about. So you can see that LUT brings back a lot of that warmth into the skin tones as well as the orange colors. So that's kind of why this is shifted to the blue side, because I don't want it to go too warm. If this was already there, it'd be really, really orange and really, really warm. So I don't want that. And then the fourth node I have is the sharpness node. So I don't know if you can see that on there. You can definitely see it down here where the lines kind of just, boom, they get a little bit more bright. That adds sharpness to the image. Then the fifth node is a little bit of vignetting around the edges just to draw focus to the face, which again, a talking head, that's what I'm trying to do. You're trying to focus on the face. And so that's what that's for. The sixth node is going to bring in what I call the secret sauce. And if you've ever watched a video where people talk about using a black pro mist filter or something on the front of their lens to make the lights bloom or have a little bit of softness, this is a digital effect of that, but it's much more subtle. I actually have a black pro mist from multiple levels of intensity, and I find that those are just too intense. And even the most minute level is still too much for what I like. It softens things too much, the edges of things. So I use the glow effect here to add a little bit of bloom and softness to the highlights of the image. And you can see the settings over here. Global blend is about halfway, so it's not full intensity, but I like the way that looks. And then the seventh node here, this is where I'm going to add some film grain. So I just added 16 millimeter 500T film grain at about 50% opacity. So it's just a little bit. If I were to zoom in here, you can see it's adding a tiny bit, and I don't know if you can see that or not. It's really, really subtle, but I like to have a little bit of grain on the image. And then I do a final adjustment here on the eighth node, which actually backs off just a little bit of the saturation, and that's the overall look. So it goes from here, which is just flat, to here, which is color graded with kind of an orange teal color grade, which is what the LUT is that I created. But that's the difference there. That's the look. All right, now that the color is finalized, we're gonna jump into the actual editing portion of this process. So to do that, we're gonna come over back to the Edit tab, and we are going to do what's called a rough edit. So I'm gonna come to the Final Cut here, and here's the thing. There's nothing in here, but I'm gonna grab one of the primary timelines, which is the A roll, and we're gonna drop that in here on the bottom. And sometimes, because of the adjustments we're doing the audio, it's going to take a little while for the audio waveform to show up here. Typically, I don't edit until I see that because I want to be able to use that to make cuts. But the thing here is, in the rough edit, the rough cut, this is all about speed, not about perfection. So you're going to want to go through and, use the blade tool or whatever. So like I have it set up for like keystrokes. So when I come over here and I hit cut, it's going to cut there, right? And then if you have multiple things on the timeline, it'll cut through all of them unless you have one selected, and then it'll only cut right there. So I don't even switch the tool. I just use keyboard shortcuts for that. So I have it set up for C, and then you can, cut things. And then also when I hit C, see how this is selected? If I want that to delete, I actually reversed what the preset is. So when I hit delete, it actually ripple deletes. So it deletes that file and then pulls everything on the right of the timeline over to the left. Now, by default, it will just do this. It'll delete and leave an empty space. And I've switched that to shift delete because I find for me in speed and the way I want to edit, I am more likely cutting out something and wanting it gone and wanting the space to close up. So a quick delete button is great for that. So I find that helps me go a little bit more quickly in my edit. So now you see the waveform here. You see I've kind of stuttered and stopped at different points. So what I'll do is I'll watch through and find like basically every time I do the last take of a certain line or what I'm going to say, that's usually the take I want to use. So I know that just because I know myself. And so I'll listen through and, listen to me talking here and then come over here and say, all right, I'm going to cut here and we're gonna start from there. So that's the start of the video. Here we go, let's go down. Okay, we wanna cut this out, and then, we don't want space there, right? So we're gonna remove that space. All right, so another thing that you want to do during this time is add and sync up your screen capture. So in the screen capture, I just, the timeline, I have the file in there. And so I bring that down from the primaries timelines and I just set that in here, and we're going to want to sync this up. And typically what you do to sync this up is just select them all, right click, and come up to align clips, and then, waveform and whatever one you want to use, and hit sync. You'll notice here that I have an auto sync fail. Sometimes the screen recording software that I use doesn't do the exact frame rate. And so when that happens, Resolve does not like that, and it does not sync up. So I'll have to do it manually. And to do that, again, I'll right click on the screen capture audio and normalize the audios to zeros just so I can see it. But you can kind of see the waveform good enough that I can come in here and make the adjustments I need to do to align that up. See how those are exactly the same? Then perfect. They're aligned up, they're ready to go. So then I can start cutting with both of those on the timeline, right? And deleting those out. And so now it starts here. And so once I have this synced up, this is where I'm going to, I don't need the screen capture audio anymore. So I'll hold Shift Delete. For me, you might just have it delete if you don't switch those around. And I just remove it. And then I'll typically just link these. You don't have to, but I link those. And then that way they're set together, but then I can also hold Alt and like drag that around if I need to, or you just don't link them at all. And then that way this is always separate, but you just need to make sure that you keep that aligned with the right clip. So if you don't think you can do that, keep the audio from the screen capture there so you can just double check. But I usually get rid of it, and to select that by itself, you hold Alt and then select, and then you can delete it. Okay, so you're gonna wanna sync that up during this time as well, and that can be a part of your whole cutting process to cut the rough cut together. All right, so once you have that kind of story together, you know what you want, you cut out all the stuff that you don't want in your video, you want to go back through and do a pace edit. And so this is basically, you're doing the same thing you just did, you're just trimming up the pacing, you're listening to it. You're hitting play, you're listening to it, making sure the gaps are good. They're not, there's not too many hesitations. You're removing the ums and things that you may be missed on the rough cut, and you're making sure the story paces well. And so sometimes this means you're removing parts that you left in. So maybe there's something you said and you realize as you play it back, I just repeated myself. Like I already said that, a minute ago or 30 seconds ago. Then you can cut that stuff out. This is all about the story. So this is the last part of the 5th step where you're editing and doing the rough cut and that kind of stuff, is the pacing and getting that fully put together so that it flows well and you can go into the next step. So step number 6 is adding B-roll or any overlays and things like that to your footage, but you're gonna overlay those on top of your edit. So whatever your edit is, you're gonna drag those down on top of it. So I don't have any preset B-rolls loaded, but if I did, I would go download them. I would maybe look them up and find them and put them over there. They'll illustrate the key points of what you're saying. And then this is also where you add some zooms. So like, let's say, you are during this time, you want it to be zooming in. You're going to so if I had this cut up into a clip, one thing you can do in Resolve, which is really easy, is if you have a clip, you can actually just do kind of an auto zoom, a dynamic zoom. And then you can also have it ease in or ease out. And what that'll do is just basically, it's going to play this zoom and see how it's zooming out. That's really easy. You can also swap it so that it starts from further out and zooms in. The thing about this is it's gonna zoom into the center of the screen and not like your eyes. So I find that doing different presets for zooms work a little bit better for me than the dynamic zoom. And you can do that really simple through the transform. Over here in Open Effects, you can type in transform, and then add that to your clip and then do keyframes. So over here, you're gonna have, this is the zoom, right? So we're starting wide, we're gonna go in and let's say we're gonna zoom into 1.3, So that's a 30% increase, but see how that's still zooming into the center? Well, the nice thing here is then you can actually click this toggle right here, the transform, to show the handles out here, and you can drag this up to where your eyes are. So now it's going to zoom in toward your eyes and not toward the center of the screen. That's just something simple that you can do with the transform. And then you also can add different things like transitions or whatever at this point of the edit overlays. So I have over here other overlays, like if I wanted, you know, some sort of film overlay for a transition, I can come put that out here and that'll play through here. Like I'm transitioning from this, you know, and to there. So I'd have to change the blend mode, the composite mode to add maybe. And so it's going to go from here and it's going to cut into that new clip. Obviously, that's not the edit, but you can add those overlays now. That would be the time that you do it. And then if you have anything else over here that you want to add, you can add those there. Now, I'm not going to do titles and text graphics yet. This is just kind of the overlays. So this is kind of the transitions and the B-roll and that kind of stuff. You might have other transitions you add later in the next step, which brings me to the 7th step. And that's kind of the final, like custom graphics, titles, and all those kind of things. So that's the last thing I do before I export is add all the text elements, you know, sound effects, titles, those kind of things. And the reason I do that is because I want to make sure that I have the full pacing, full story done the right way, and then also be able to know that I'm visualizing things well with B-roll and overlays and things that I want to add just a little bit of character to it. All those are done before I add text. And so for me, I have, you know, some presets that I use in here. In the project, I don't have very many. I only have one right now in this starter project. I have a couple other starter projects that have a lot more than that. But I also use the effects over here in titles, and then I use motion effects. I have a link down in the description below where you can go and you know, see what those are and maybe purchase some of those. These are, for me, the best motion graphics presets for DaVinci Resolve. So if you're using those, they have amazing presets and things available for you there. And so the cool thing is with this is you can kind of come through and let's say we want this typography right here, right? So all I got to do is drop it on the timeline. And so now it just plays. It's really easy. It's already set up. I can click this, come over, and it's already a part of this. I can come in and add and change the text to whatever I want, and it's going to update here automatically. And so this is really great to be able to have these kind of presets over here. And then you can also save those. So a lot of times I'll have these presets and I'll take them and I'll save them into, you know, the text to copy. And so maybe I'm changing the color, maybe I'm changing some of the what it's doing as the preset, and I want that to be kind of my brand. I will use that and save those in there and just copy and paste those in there. And then the other thing I'm going to do is sound effects. So in the power bins, I have a ton of sound effects. I probably need more actually, but you can come through. And this is where I'm going to add the sound effects by just dragging them down here, timing them up, and putting them, you know, depending on the edit I'm doing, you know, having a sound effect pop in and make a noise. That's when I'm going to do all of that. I'm also going to add music at this time and kind of do the editing for that and making sure all the levels are good for that, all in this final step. Okay, so all of that leads to the final export, and that is the step 8. So once your final cut is ready to go, you've watched through it, the pacing's good, everything's added, and you're ready to export, you're gonna come over to the Deliver tab and come over here. And I've kind of talked about this before in videos. I have a video that is all about the export settings, and you can go through that video. But I'll go to export, and I usually just start with an H.264 master. You can also start with a custom export. This saves my default. It saves what I use every time, so I really don't have to change anything. But this is where you'll add the location, the file name, And here's what I do resolution wise. It's the same resolution as the timeline. I do adjust this KBS instead of automatic for the quality. This is the compression quality. I'll change this to anywhere between 60 and 80 KBS because 80,000, because I want it to have a little bit less compression for 4K. If I'm doing a 1080 timeline, then this will be anywhere between 30 and 50 KBS. And I will use that custom. And then also what I do is I just make sure that the color space and the gamma tag are right on Apple devices. Sometimes if this is just Rec 709, it'll have a shift, a gamma shift on the export, and it won't look exactly what it looks like in Resolve when you're playing it back. And so this Rec 709-A is the fix for that. And so you just make sure you have that set up. You add it to render queue. I don't have a name to it or anything. It'll pop over here and then hit render all. So that's a complete workflow I use when I'm editing. Hopefully that was helpful. And if it was, drop a like or a comment and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. If you're interested in the difference between the free and the studio version of Resolve and which one you should have, watch this video right here, and I'll see you guys in the next video.